Okay, so today I'm going to talk about 5-piece striker, the bonuses that you get from this gear set, using 5 of your 6 gear set pieces towards this set. So it's kind of an all-in, style build. You're getting the 4-piece bonus for the stacking damage of 1% per bullet, but you're also, completing the 50% critical hit damage that used to be on the 3-piece. Now, what this set does when you're using 5 different pieces, it opens up the door for using something like the Reckless chest piece. Alternatively, you can use something like the Savage gloves, or if you're going to talk about it from a 4-piece standpoint and you don't really care about the 5-piece bonus and getting back that critical hit damage that you lose, that they nerfed off of the 3-piece, you can use Reckless chest piece and Savage gloves or an alternative 2-piece gear set. I'm going to cover mostly the 5-piece, what I think of it, what I think it should be used for, the proper way to use it, and overall its utility. Now, I am going to approach the PvP aspect, but I don't actually have any footage for you. One of our upper echelon members is on vacation, and until he gets back, we're really not going to be doing that much PvP or taking over the Dark Zone or things like that. So it's specifically going to be, a theory craft and a discussion of Striker itself as a 5-piece set, with a little bit of gameplay in the underground showing, the proper way to stack, things like that, what it works on, what it doesn't, and, showcasing a couple different weapons and how to use them. So I specifically use a 5-piece Striker gear set with the Reckless chest piece. I'm extremely squishy. Now, this is something that you might want to build differently, if you're going to use this set. I'm okay with this. I feel like it augments my team very well. I can do a lot of damage, very quickly, stack up that bonus. And in the end, I really don't care about my toughness too much. I feel like the difference between 300 and 500, at least against strong NPCs, is negligible. You're not going to see a huge amount of survivability, increase when you get hit by a shotgunner. They just do so much damage, and they're so accurate that to me, it really doesn't make a difference. So if I play smart, and I'm on the sticks well, I can do a lot of damage. I can stagger the enemy shotgunners. I can, get off headshots. And overall, my value is going to be greater if I'm smart and dealing a lot of damage than if I'm, very tanky and, have to progress slowly. So that's why I'm using these stats right here. Now, the primary DPS, I wouldn't pay attention to that too much. I am using an SMG, and I think that's probably the weapon type that pairs the best with 5-piece Striker, considering that it's very critical hit oriented, and you're stacking the bonus, so you want a high rate of fire, and you want to be landing, shots effectively. So a little bit of accuracy on your SMG and a lot of stability is very nice. They come with that, and then they also come with a critical hit damage modifier on them now instead of critical hit chance, so that's super nice as well. This is going to get a little bit longer. I've talked too long already, so I'm going to go over my gear. For a backpack, I'm using a stamina backpack with a really nice stamina roll and critical hit damage. I did not roll skill power because my primary role on the team is to be, a high damage, a high weapon damage carry effectively. I have a good stamina roll for a little bit of tankiness. I am ticking off all of the bonuses, as you can see here. I have a lot of enemy armor damage. I have a lot of critical hit damage, and I'm getting the 4-piece bonus as well. So that's one of the 1 pieces, the single piece I'm actually prioritizing stamina with right now. Now, the gloves, I have just a standard set of Striker gloves, 240. They could be better. SMG damage, damage to elites, and critical hit chance. Damage to elites is better from an NPC farming standpoint than critical hit chance or critical hit damage. But if you are going to use this build in PvP, where it does function, quite well, I'm not one that uses it all the time, but it is something that works, then you would want something like critical hit damage over damage to elites. That's going to increase your effectiveness, and it's going to be a large chunk, up to 40-something%. So you would want to re-roll that in a situation where you're using it for PvP. I am not. My gameplay display today is just going to be PvE, farming NPCs in the underground, so I don't really need to change that or, use gloves that have that. First aid self-heal is super valuable in all aspects of the game. Down to my holster, this is just a classic 268 holster. I rolled armor. I typically always roll armor. You would want something in the skill attributes that's more valuable than sticky bomb damage, but at the same time this works. Not great on stamina and electronics, but these are functional rolls and just a typical holster. Over to the pads. Now, I did roll critical hit damage on these as well. Stacking up all that critical hit damage is what's going to make it viable to use an SMG, and make it also viable to stagger the enemy NPCs when they get closer by landing headshots and get progressively more damage from the headshots. And overall, it's just going to be a really great combo. You're going to dish a lot of damage. You're going to progress through missions quite quickly. You could replace this with something like armor if you're struggling to reach the armor cap. I don't. I typically armor cap very easily due to, some good rolls on chest pieces and things like that. There are specific pieces of armor that you want to roll armor on all the time. This is not exactly one of them. You're free to mix and match with your pads if you want to prioritize damage or armor, whatever's easiest and, it's user-friendly, whatever is more convenient for your build. So then up to my mask, I use right now, just again, I slap this build together. It's more of an average, take on the build. I don't have min-maxed pieces. Not every single one of my pieces is 268. I feel like that's a good approach, and I've gotten some really positive feedback on that, talking about a build from a more realistic standpoint, not spending, 100 hours farming the perfect build and then saying, look at this, but then no one can actually replicate that. I'm trying to do something that you could probably easily replicate. Not only that, but you could replicate to a better degree. So maybe if you put this build together, it will actually be better than mine, and you might achieve even better results. So that's something I try to do and make it user-friendly in that regard. So this has damage to elites. That should be critical hit chance or something like that. Again, you can re-roll that. It's a firearms mask with an extremely low firearms roll. A 268 version or even a 240 version with just a marginally higher roll would be better. The mod in it, it helps me right now to boost my skill power up. I would be up something about 10,000, 11,000 if I didn't have mostly stamina mods with skill power. And I'm freed up to do that by my armor rolls, so that's nice to note as well. Going to my chest piece, I have a really nice Reckless chest piece that I use for pretty much all my builds that feature, this talent. It has a great firearms roll, has great armor on it, almost 700. It has good EDR, so that's nice as well, especially if you pair it with 2-piece final measure. But in this build, you're not actually free to do that using 5-piece striker, so I won't cover that very much. It has some nice stamina mods, one with armor, one with skill power, allowing me to achieve the armor cap. That's the one mod I had to use with armor in it. And then skill power again to boost me up, otherwise I'd be, really low and my heal wouldn't be very effective. So that's my gear. Now talking about my weapon, I am using a 204 AUG just because it has great base damage. It rolled very nicely. It has brutal, responsive, and competent. Now, responsive and competent, since I am going to be popping skills almost all the time, and I'm going to have that 13.5% typically for the duration of the fight, and responsive is going to be active almost in every PvP encounter where I can get close enough, which I prefer to be doing. I prefer to be in cover fairly close to the target from an NPC standpoint, and then I also will be, run and gunning, running circles around other people in the DZ. All the PvP encounters you're going to have are very close quarters right now. That's what the metagame is. So responsive and competent right there gives me a base damage boost of 27% to my primary weapon in most situations. So that's a really, really good talent pairing that you're going to want to look out for. I'm, becoming happier and happier with this as time goes on. And then brutal, if I can land those headshots, it's really good. It doesn't actually hinge on critical strikes. You're just going to get that bonus flat whenever you land a headshot. So I like that a little bit over deadly at this point, especially with the nerf to SMGs where it's no longer critical hit chance, but critical hit damage. I feel that the critical hit chance was what made deadly so good on SMGs. And now that it's critical hit damage, you're going to want brutal because then you can use alternative methods like pulse, like savage gloves, things like that. And stacking mods with critical hit chance or other factors to increase your critical hit chance and then take advantage of brutal more so than you would of deadly. Okay, so my secondary is going to be this military M870. This is a very high damage shotgun. I have not actually been able to make a full shotgun build that's super effective. A lot of subscribers have posted comments about how their shotgun builds could 2-shot me or 3-shot me or 1-shot me even. And I do have a friend who specifically can one-shot me with pretty much every single build that I use using a shotgun of the M870 variety. This one has deadly, capable, and brutal. I would much prefer capable to be responsive, but I can't quite roll it yet and I need some more Phoenix credits. This works very well with the Striker 5-piece. You need to be very accurate. You need to be skilled at the game in the sense that you need to keep the reticle on target. You need to hit all those pellets, but it does work quite well. I actually had a subscriber say that in 3 shots they stack the bonus to full and then kill people in 1 shot. Now, just as a really quick aside, do a little bit of math with that before you make statements like that, because there's only 8 pellets per shotgun shot, and stacking 3 of them on top of each other would only be 24% increased damage bonus. So I don't know if that was a typo or something, but shotgun shots, it's going to take a lot of them consecutively landed with every single pellet, because even missing 1 pellet of that full shotgun round is actually going to decrease the effectiveness with Striker a great deal. Out of 8 pellets, you would get 8%. If you miss one of those pellets, not only would you go down to gaining 7%, you actually lose 2% of that as well, and you only gain 5. So it's a really it's a double-edged sword using a shotgun with Striker. If you're good and you land it, yes, it's absolutely amazing. If you're not quite as good and you miss some of those pellets and you hit only half the shot, it's not very good at all. So just keep that in mind when using a shotgun, but it is viable and it is very strong. I have not been able to showcase it perfectly, but there are builds out there, so keep looking. That's the guns I'm using. That's about it. I'm going to throw it over to the gameplay. I'm going to talk about why I'm doing the things I'm doing, just a little bit of tips and tricks and quirks about the build and how well it functions. So here we go. Okay, so this is just a 2-phase heroic. I'm not going to talk through the whole thing. I'm going to try and keep the video fairly short. It's already dragged on a little bit longer. I'm trying to keep to a 10-minute timeline, incorporate some feedback that was that would be an ideal format, so I am trying to do that. Now, one thing to note about Striker specifically is that it does not stack on objects. So if you shoot one of the traps in the underground, if you shoot turrets, if you shoot this this skill jammer here, all of these objects do not actually have the same type of hitbox that the enemy NPCs do, and you will not stack Striker. As you can see there, I didn't gain a single stack from it, even though I destroyed it. Now, once I'm shooting regular NPCs, I will begin to gain Striker stacks. Now, I have very high critical hit damage with this build. Yes, I'm extremely squishy, but at the same time, I do a lot of damage, so I think it's an acceptable trade-off. In PvP, you're going to want to be extremely careful of sticky bombs. Anytime you're using a 5-piece gear set, you're not going to be gaining the final measure. You're just not going to have that option. So you are going to be susceptible to sticky bombs, which means being, hyper aware of your surroundings, very in tune with who you're fighting against, where they're going, when their skills are going to come off cooldown, and all that different stuff. Now, I did make a video in the past about accuracy and why it's an inflated statistic and why you shouldn't use it. But specifically from the standpoint of Striker, and I got a lot of feedback on this, and people said, accuracy may be bad and may be inflated in a certain aspect, but when you're using it with Striker, if you don't have any, your shot grouping is going to be so spread out, especially from range, that you're going to not be able to stack very well. And this is extremely true. So a big shout out to the people that brought that to my attention, that posted that down in the feedback. That was really helpful. You are going to want more accuracy on an SMG while running 4-piece Striker to get that bonus, or 5-piece Striker, than you would on another gun type, because from a farther range, you do not want to miss any shots. Missing any shots at all is counterproductive, especially from an NPC PvE standpoint. Even one shot missed is going to actually take off a chunk of the damage you could be dealing. You want to be hitting every single shot. Now, I may not be a perfect example of this. My aim is not the best, but I do try my best to show effectively what can and can't work. I shouldn't have gone down there. I was being a little bit dumb and face tanking. My teammate came to get me. So flanking, with the Striker bonus, if you can get the enemies to fire at your teammates and they can hold aggro, it's going to be really helpful. You can also actually specifically gear towards making this effective by putting something like increased threat on the muzzle brakes of all your teammates, while you have something like decreased threat. Now, you would be sacrificing some critical hit damage, but this actually has turned out to be a very viable strategy, especially when using Striker in PvE, because I have found that if you have 3 people running increased threat, the NPCs will always be shooting at those 3. And if you are running a suppressor, even though you sacrifice a little bit of damage, you're actually going to have severely reduced threat, and as a result, you can actually shoot them from fairly close on the flank, and they will never even look at you. You're free to land as many headshots as you want, stack the bonus to 100% very easily, and get these massive critical strikes, despite having sacrificed critical strike on your muzzle brake. And in the end, it's extremely effective. So anybody that wants to try that out, I do recommend it. It's a little bit of an advanced tactic. I haven't really seen many people running, that strategy or those types of mods, but, it does work, and it's something I'm going to do a video on later on how to effectively farm, underground content. So I'm going to have a little bit coming up here where I do use the shotgun, I believe, to show, the stacking mechanics, and how it does stack effectively. But I'm going to talk about PvP now for a little bit as well. As you can see, the objects don't stack Striker is another example there. So from a PvP standpoint, people are suggesting quite often that I use Striker and a shotgun of the M870 or the SASG variety. Now, I have tried that. I haven't been able to make a really great build with that yet. I've done an Alpha Bridge build with the shotgun, which, it functioned okay. It performed and it was competitive, but it wasn't anything that was going to dominate the Dark Zone, especially from a solo play perspective. I couldn't really drop targets on my own. Now, with the Strikers bonus, with a high stack Strikers bonus, perhaps you stack it with your SMG and then turn to using a shotgun, it can actually do, an extreme amount of damage. I don't have clips for you. Again, sorry about that. It's going to be a little bit before we get back into the swing of PvP, especially with our guys on vacation. But, we're going to be continuing the squad versus squad series that we started recently, which was a resounding success. And we're going to be doing that very soon, as soon as he's off vacation. So as you can see, the shotgun does stack all right, but you need to be landing those pellets. The reload speed is something I don't really like about the M870, but it does great damage. As you can see, one single pellet was doing 126,000 on a critical strike headshot there. So if, let's say, all 8 pellets hit a critical strike of 126,000, now that was without pulse, I believe, as well. you're going to be hitting up into the million range easily as soon as you pulse, and just under that if you're not pulsing and you get critical strikes. Now, it's not going to be 100% critical strike chance, so that's just a little bit of an assumption. That's ideal. You're never going to perform to that level, but when you are using something like pulse, you can perform, very close to that, and it's extremely effective against the player. That's where the ability to one-shot players comes from, using the M870 and landing a headshot. My aim is not on point most of the time, so I won't be able to actually land those headshots in PvP. And when I do get that ability, and I am good enough to do that, I'll show you right away, and I'll do an in-depth review of it. So I'm gonna cut it there. That's gonna be it. That's my thoughts on Striker. It pairs very well with Savage or Reckless or both if you want to run the 4-piece. You can run the 4-piece and pair it with other 2-piece gear sets like Final Measure or Blind, even something like that. But in the end, I think it's best used in a 5-piece variety with an SMG and a shotgun. That's just my opinion. Whether it's Reckless, or you want to build more tanky, go with Savage, and then, take reduced damage. Because with Reckless, you are taking increased incoming damage. And from a PvE standpoint, that can add up really quickly. And from a PvP standpoint, if there are multiple players shooting you, it will stack on top of itself and become, something that's very difficult to deal with. So I'm going to call it there. Thank you for watching. Now, the t-shirts that we launched at 2,000 subscribers, we've already blown far past that, so I can't thank the community enough. This is amazing. I really never expected this, but they're going to be up for another week. If you like the design, it's right here. It's some wings. It's got the crest with the wings. It's on the back. It's a very big design on the back, and you got the little pocket, oriented section on the front, with the same design. I think they're really cool. I can't wait to get mine. I know some other people who have ordered them and like them a lot. So if you want to support the channel, all of the profits, which are going to be minimal, because if you click the link in the description, you'll get 15% off. But all the profits will go towards a new microphone, which a lot of subs have asked me to get, and I'm right close to getting. I've actually picked out the one I want, and I'm really close to grabbing that and increasing the audio quality greatly. So as always, thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for commenting. I'll try to keep commenting to every single person that responds on my videos. It's getting to the point where I may not be able to do that anymore. There's a lot of comments that I have to, answer, but there are some other people in the community that are answering, very well with just as good, if not better, information than I have. So post a question if you have one, and hopefully me or someone else can answer it or give you some feedback that will be helpful. As always, thanks for supporting the channel, and have a nice day.